welcome or welcome back if you've joined us previously. I'm going to put my camera on. My name is Peter Sumpton. I'm a marketing consultant working with the BBA. Camera's not great today, apologies, and there's a huge light there. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? Because I'm not the main star today. I'm delighted that our focus today will be Future Homes Standard, and we'll be discussing that along with Trevor Clements, who's joining us in a minute. He's the Head of Business Development at Hertfordshire Building Control. So before we get on to that topic, just a couple of slides, as always. Apologies if you've seen this for the first, second, 10th or 20th time, but an introduction to the BBA. So for over 50 years, the BBA, it's 55 years actually, the BBA have been helping construction and manufacturing industries build confidence in the solutions, the products, the designs, and that implementation into the marketplace and throughout the whole supply chain. The BBA looks to develop long-term partnerships with all its clients to help continue growth, not just in the UK, but also abroad in global marketplaces. But it's important to remember they will always remain reassuringly impartial. Hugely important to us, that. Final part about the BBA is that they're actually a for-profit organisation, but they're limited by guarantee. So any profits that they do make, they look to reinvest back into the industry as a whole, or for the benefit of the industry. So that benefits you, me, and the wider stakeholders within the construction industry. But what do the BBA actually do? Well, there's a list of the main services the BBA provide, more commonly known for our BBA agreement certification, but under PAC, Product Approval Certification, we do reproduction certificates and HAPAS. But not as well known is testing, audit and inspection, management systems, and more recently UKCA marking. So if you're interested in them, get in touch, but this isn't a sales pitch, this is just highlighting what the BBA actually do. So 2 more slides to go. To date, we have issued over 6,000 certificates. And in the bottom right-hand corner, more impressively, biggest number, so it's more impressively, is the annual inspections and assessments, over 8,000. So we're busy at work helping the construction industry and its supply chain. Okay, on to the main event. What we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover the Future Homes Standard implementation timeline, Amendment Approved Document L and F, and all new approved document Overheating. And finally, we'll end up with a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A functionality on this webinar. We'll get to them at the end of Trevor's presentation. If we don't get time to answer them, we will get back to you on email or whatever form of comms is relevant at the time. So if we don't get to answer your question, don't worry, we will answer it eventually. So without further ado, I'd like to hand the screen over to our presenter today, Trevor. So let me just hand it over to you, Trevor, and Trevor, take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name's Trevor Clements. Hello. Delighted that you could join me. I'm not being coy here. You can't see my face. We tried to get me up on the video screen, but it was showing the back of my laptop, which is a box of tissues. So you're not going to see my face, but if you just imagine a sort of dark, swarthy, matinee idol type looking chap, you'll be somewhere a million miles from the truth. So we'll move forward in that vein. Yeah, I'm a head of business development. Actually, I'm a surveyor. I'm specifically a building control surveyor. I work for a company called Hertfordshire Building Control. We're unusual in the local authority building control market because we are a merger of 8 council teams. So we're probably the biggest in the country. We've got good resources and we're nice and resilient, and we really do enjoy getting involved with people within our county and also around the country on our partnership work with the major developers. So anyway, you don't want to know about me, you want to know about the Future Homes Standard and the approved document changes. This change is the result of 2 consultations that ended in April 2021. and it's marking a stepping stone towards the government's Future Homes Standard for 2025, which is itself a stepping stone towards this aim for carbon zero new homes from 2050. And the aim
Trevor,
of this...
Trevor, sorry to interrupt. You're not sharing your screen at the moment, just to make
not?
you aware.
I do apologise.
That's okay, I didn't want you to go any further.
Right.
There you go, perfect. Thank you.
They are technically imperfect.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, where was it? Yeah, so the interim uplift, the aim is to produce 31% less carbon dioxide in housing compared to those built to current standards. And I'm focusing on new dwellings today. Now, I had hoped that by now we'd have the final version of approved document L. It was promised to us originally middle of the year, but we now hear it's going to be released sometime in December. So there may be a few tweaks and time will tell. But what we're going to show you is somewhere near to where it's going to be, if not exact. So what we're going to cover the changes, as Peter said, covering dwellings and extensions to dwellings. And I'll do a little bit on approved document F, actually, because that's relevant and interlinked with those and the new approved document for overheating. So it's coming in 2025. Here's a slide showing the implementation timeline. So if you read that, you'll see that next month we expect the approved document to be published. And alongside that, there'll be the new approved document F to cover ventilation, plus the overheating document. A full technical specification for the Future Homes Standard will be consulted on in 2023. So from that, we expect another amended approved document L, hence the phrase an interim for the next one, and another version of the SAP, the Standard Assessment Procedure, the tool by which we judge conformity with the building regulations. And the necessary legislation for all that will be introduced in 2024 ahead of implementation in 2025. So that's casting a long look ahead. And at that point, there will be no fossil fuel heating in homes that will be zero carbon ready and emitting 75 to 80% less carbon than homes built to current standards. And by the phrase zero carbon ready, as I'm sure you realise, it means you don't need any retrofit to achieve carbon zero. What you're doing, you're waiting for the power grid to convert over to low carbon generation. So here are the transitional arrangements in simple terms. So you'll see that up to June 22, any work already commenced can come under the old approved document. Then from 22, if the work hasn't commenced but an application has been registered prior to June 22, the work will come under the current approved document, but it must commence prior to June 23. If an application isn't submitted by June 22, then the work will come under the new approved document, ADL 2021. And of course, from June 2023, whether or not the work has started, all work, or whether, and irrespective of when the application came in, all work will come under ADL 2021 from that date. And just a note there that commencement in previous transitions, you could start a plot on a big development, and that would bring the whole development under the wire for new regulations. In this case, you have to start each and every individual plot or every block of flats to constitute a start. Otherwise, you may then have to have the other plots come under the new standard. Hope that's clear. So let's have a look at this, a summary of the main changes we can expect. Part L, the approved documents going from 4 to 2 volumes, volume 1 covering dwellings and 2 non-dwellings. The latest version's gone with option 2 of the consultation, which was for a mix of fabric performance plus technology. In other words, encouraging the use of low carbon heating and renewables. So alongside that, there'll be a new version of the SAP, the Standard Assessment Procedure, the measuring tool for energy performance, and that will be based on total energy performance. and it will be the approved tool for demonstrating compliance of all new housing. So we have this notional dwelling linked to the SAP on which performance targets are set, and they will then be obviously those standards will be increased for things like air leakage and fabric efficiency and the efficiency of controlled fittings. And there's also an expectation for that notional dwelling that new technologies like wastewater heat recovery, I'll talk a bit more about that later, that sort of thing will be included in the specifications, plus a degree of photovoltaic panel provision that will be in proportion to the floor area. So for new dwellings, we used to ask for, as you probably know, any architects out there, we used to ask for calculations showing the fabric efficiency, the total fabric efficiency target, and the carbon emission target, and that was it. But we're now looking for the target dwelling emission rate, the TER, the target fabric efficiency rate, TFER, and we've also got this new animal, the target primary energy rate. This is the new factor. I'll tell you a bit more about that later because there's a complex slide that I've got to wade through, and hopefully I'll do it fluently. Apart from all those targets, we also need to see that the minimum base standards, i.e. the bottom line standards, have been met in the design for fabric efficiency. So there I'm talking about the U values of the thermal elements that make up the new building. And we also have to look at the minimum efficiencies for fixed building services. And all this data will form part of what's going to be called a BREL report, which stands for Building Regulations England Part L. And that needs to be given to the building owner and building control. And part of that is a need for photographs to be taken throughout the construction period. It's a new requirement, and it promises to create some challenges for people like me and my team in building control, assuming it's retained in the final draft, and I've no hint to know that it won't be. And you'll see there's a list of the sort of photographs that need to be taken at the various key stages in the construction. I won't read all through them. It's a bit of a wordy slide, and apologies for that. But what they're looking for is photographs that confirm that the products identified in the BREL report have been used in the as-built dwelling, and that the workmanship is of sufficient quality to support the calculated values that are being claimed. And we will look for at least one image per detail as listed. Sorry if I see might be getting some network connection difficulties. I'm on super fast, so I hope it's not my end, but apologies if you're not hearing this as clearly as you should. Hopefully a few people are. Anyway, these photographs are all about cold bridging at junctions, air leakage, these sort of things, and plus evidence that the appropriate building services equipment is being used. And the energy assessor also needs a copy of these because he's going to be producing the as-built SAP calculation. So he's got to wade through those, as have we in theory, before we can issue our final building regulations completion certificate. Because, you know, in doing our duty, we have an obligation to spot any defects and emissions. And as you can imagine, if we do spot them, it's going to be very difficult to remedy them post-completion. So yeah, it could be a tricky way ahead with this that we need to get our head around and discuss. And as I always say to our graduates when I'm training them, a photograph only tells you what the photographer wants to show you. And so you've got the problems of identifying where a photo is actually being taken. Is it of the building being assessed? Who knows? Is it just a Google image that somebody's got of a perfect detail? Well, the government have thought of that, and there's a requirement that the photos have a geolocation attached to them, plus a time and date, so we can have a fair idea that nobody's fiddling anything. But despite all that, I do see that this could need a great deal of thought on how we can sensibly and effectively apply the requirement. I don't think we can just rely on the professionalism of the energy consultant producing the as-built SAP to have thoroughly assessed those photos. No offence to any energy consultants out there. So I mentioned the bottom line standards for new dwellings, and that's just a slide to show you what they are. It's one of the hoops that the designer has to jump through. And you will see there, I've shown in red the current minimum standards, and there's the new ones on the table 4.1. The maximum U values have been tweaked as shown, and there's also a tweak to the air leakage minimum standard. Used to be 10, in other words, the barn doors open, but it's now gone down to 8. And there's also a new alternative target, which can be tested at a lower pressure of 4 pascals. So that's another option for showing air permeability performance. These don't relate to extensions to dwellings. These aren't the U values for extension dwellings. I'll cover that in a slide in a little while. Right, here's that tricky slide to wade through. This is about the primary energy rating. That third performance target that new homes are going to have. It's a metric that's already been in use in Europe for some time, so we've hooked onto that. And the definition of primary energy is energy from renewable and non-renewable sources which has not undergone any conversion or transformation process. So, for example, you've got chemical energy contained in fossil fuels like coal. Coal is a source of primary energy. However, a unit of electricity generated by burning that fossil fuel would not be considered primary energy because it has gone through a conversion process. Similarly, with natural gas, it has to be got out of the earth, it has to be refined and transported, and that all uses energy, and same for oil. So the SAP calculation uses primary energy factors and heating plant efficiencies to convert the calculated energy requirements of a dwelling into primary energy demand figure. So the primary energy factor, for example, for mains gas is 1.13. And in other words, we will need to have 1.13 kilowatts of energy to extract 1 kilowatt of gas from the earth, which includes refining it, pumping it through the UK's pipe network to reach the dwelling. Electricity, surprisingly, is a little bit higher. That's currently 1.5, but of course, these will all change in time as technology improves. So I've got 2 examples there just to underline the methodology. 2 identical houses, they've got the same heating demand, but they've got different heating systems. So you've got dwelling A. This dwelling has a 90% efficient gas boiler. Heating demand, as for both, is 10,000 kilowatt hours, and the primary energy factor, as we've said, for mains gas is 1.13. So the associated primary energy would be 10,000 kilowatt hours divided by 0.9 for the efficiency times 1.13 for the primary energy factor. So we've got a energy demand there of 12.5 megawatts for dwelling A. Dwelling B, that's got a heat pump, and the heat pump is 300% efficient. It also has the same 10 megawatt heating demand. So in that case, the primary energy factor is the 1.5, the factor for electricity, multiplied by the heating demand divided by 3, being the 300% efficiency. And so for that, we get the primary energy demand of 5 megawatts, so less than half. So, as I say, the target for primary energy use will take account of both the property's heating system efficiency and the energy use that's needed to produce the fuel and deliver it to the property. So hopefully I got through that, and it's reasonably clear in your minds what that's about. These are the SAP targets based on the notional dwelling. So that we've already got those for the 2013 version of approved document L, and these are the new ones that are being tweaked, and I've highlighted where they're changing. They're still based. It's still based on a gas boiler, a mains gas boiler. The roof U value assumed was 0.13. It's now 0.11. Doors and windows tweaked to 1.4 and 1.2. Air tightness for that notional dwelling is the same, 5 meters cubed per hour per meter squared. We've got this new primary flow temperature coming in, which is 55 degrees centigrade. Obviously, that's lower than a typical boiler system would be running with, but much more compatible with underfloor heating if you're not going to be putting much larger radiators in to heat the home. We've got that new factor you can see there of including wastewater heat recovery to all showers and showers over baths. And you've also got an increase in the assumed area of photovoltaic panels. So for those of you who have not yet come across wastewater heat recovery systems, I hadn't before I saw it in the new approved document draft. Here's a slide on wastewater heat recovery. So the principle is that part of the waste pipe serving a shower tray, or it may be a bath with a shower over it, will have to include a heat exchanger to take heat from the wastewater flowing down the pipe and transfer it into the cold supply, either going to the hot water tank, so it's preheating slightly that water, or if it's an instantaneous shower, it might be the cold supply to the shower itself. So it's partially heating the water and saving energy used by the boiler or the other water heating device, energy that would have literally washed down the drain. So yeah, this expectation to put those in. If you don't, then there will have to be other compensatory measures to be able to hit the targets in the SAP. It would be interesting to see how plumbers get their heads around those. I should imagine there'll be a few expletives cast around site until they get used to it. So that was all about new dwellings. There may be a few of you out there who are involved in extensions and alterations to dwellings. What's happening with those? Well, what's currently tables 1 and 2 in the approved document will become this new table 4.2 in the draft approved document. So I've shown there again in red what the current standards are, just so you can see how they're being tweaked slightly. The big one there is it's a bit more than a tweak. Walls from 0.28 to 0.18. So yeah, we'll be interested to see how designers and industry hit that standard. With your traditional cavity walls, brick and block. We're going to be seeing some big cavities. We're going to be seeing more use of high efficiency insulation, because that's going to be a huge cavity if you're going to be using mineral fiber or fiberglass bats to achieve that mark. But yeah, that's what's happening with extensions. We're seeing a new phrase in the regulations of self-regulating device coming up quite a lot, i.e. a device that automatically monitors the output of heating or cooling. And there's an emphasis on those being provided individually to control temperature in each room, or if it's an open plan in each zone, and that's sort of a mandatory thing now. It might be as simple as a TRV on a radiator, which people are putting in anyway, obviously. But obviously, underfloor heating, usually that also is controlled for rooms, so it's not going to have too much effect there. Also, if you're doing some alterations, so you're fitting a new wet heating system in a property, or maybe you're fully replacing it, and by that I mean a full replacement rather than just swapping out a boiler. In those situations, you do need to design for that 55 degree centigrade or lower flow temperature. And you'll see there's a BRE publication which is about design of low temperature domestic heating systems. Sorry, you probably can't read that if it's on a big screen like I can see it. It's a bit of a grainy image. I'll have to improve that. But that's there for you as a reference. Got to be careful. Regulations are saying that you must not oversize systems. They must not be more than 120% of the design heating load. And there's various publications to give you guidance on that, including that energy saving trust document there, CE 54. So a few more new rules. We've got heat pumps. Heat pumps must be designed and installed in accordance with the Microgeneration Certification Scheme standard. That's MIS 3005, shown at the top there. Cooling systems have to have an energy efficiency ratio of at least 4. And again, there is that size and requirement not to exceed 120% of design cooling load, because that's just wasted energy that doesn't need to be used. For mechanical ventilation, we now have new targets for fan power efficiency. For a typical domestic intermittent extract system that we're seeing most properties, that's 0.5 watts per litre per second of extraction rate. So that's what we're looking for there on fittings. And if you're going to install a supply and extract package system, it must include heat recovery with at least 73% efficiency. Finally, there's a few new rules on fixed lighting, and you see at the bottom of the slide there on the right, we've got the CIBSE SLL lighting handbook. That's the go-to read for compliance on fixed lighting, and the efficiency standard generally for lighting seems to be 75 lumens per circuit watt as the bottom line. And there's also rules on automation. A lot of people want smarter homes with all gadgets. Well, there's rules on that, on the automation and control systems. And there's also new rules on on-site electricity generation. So I'll just briefly, and I'm not going to go over this a lot, but approved document F also expected to change from the current version when we get it next month. And there you see how we're going to have more detailed guidance on considering external pollution when designing for ventilation in built up areas. We're going to see tighter controls on retrofit works. It's recognizing how this sort of work can introduce air quality issues into properties. The simple example of that being when you put new windows in, currently there's no requirement to fit trickle vents if the current windows don't have them. Well, I think the new AD will say yes, you do, because modern windows are far better sealed, and trickle ventilation, if used, can really help to maintain air quality. We're told that the new ADF will be simpler and more unambiguous in terms of the guidance. Hallelujah to that, I say, because if that was one document that was overcomplicated in the last version, what should be a relatively simple subject made complex. Yeah, that was it. And as I always say, if things aren't easy to understand, even for professionals like us, what chance the man behind the drawing desk trying to design buildings. So there you go. We'll see if they're good to their word, and that's far more comprehensible than it was. Finally, there's going to be a mandatory requirement for guidance for homeowners on these systems installed, so that they can use them efficiently and get the a healthy environment to live in. Air quality is a topic at the moment. It's been demonstrated to be generally poor in new homes, even new homes that comply and been seen to comply with the regulations. Is this going to resolve the problem? I personally don't think so. I think you've got to somehow take out the human element. You can put all the fittings and fans in a property you like, but unless somebody wants to switch them on or open them, they aren't going to do what they're designed to do. People go into new houses, first thing they do at night is they switch off the mechanical ventilation heat recovery because they don't like the buzz. Well, you don't see stale air, you don't know the carbon dioxide levels you're breathing in and other pollutants, all the VOCs, and you know, there's no warning in a property, no environmental monitor that's going to tell you that. So call me a cynic, but I don't think this is going to do it. I think we do need smarter systems, and time will tell. And we're on the run in now, as mentioned earlier. We're also expecting this new approved document on overheating. So it's all about limiting unwanted solar gain. That will mean maximum glazed areas, and it looks like that's going to be around about 21% of floor area. We're going to need to see the provision of means to remove excess heat from indoors. So we've got minimum opening areas, so maximum glazed areas, minimum opening areas, looking at around about 12% of floor area, if that's how it pans out in the final version. There'll be two methods of showing compliance, a simple method, so a fixed set of design rules, or a dynamic thermal assessment method. And there's a guidance document on that. CIBSE TM59 is the one, if you want to get a bit more sophisticated about designing for that. There's consideration in there for external noise and pollution, and a cross-reference into approved document F, because all these measures have to have in mind that, you know, it's got to be feasible for people to live a comfortable life and use the fittings. You know, if you're living on a main road, you aren't going to be opening that big window. You need some other method to remove the heat. There's consideration, I say, about time with approved document F. There's a time with approved document Q in terms of security. Again, if a window is part of is a high security window because it's on the ground floor, and you know, you don't want to leave it open at night, so you do need to have some sort of strategy to mitigate for that, and the requirements will consider that. I can let you know that it looks like the rules for Greater London will be more onerous than the rest of the country. Apparently overheating is a much bigger problem in London, and there you might see a requirement for shading on the south-facing elevations. Things like overhangs of the building design would also be an option, shutters or reflective glass. They're the sort of things that will have to be designed in. And finally, as with ventilation, there'll be rules on making owners and occupiers aware of how they use the building effectively to remove excess heat. So the builder developer will have to pass on a home user guide, and building control will have to make sure it's been done. So nearly final slide then, for those who are interested amongst you and have the time, here's the recently published 195-page report on the government strategy for heating buildings over the next decade. The ambition being to phase out the installation of natural gas boilers beyond 2035. And I'm just reading from the document. It says that much like the move to electric vehicles, the move to low carbon heating will be a gradual transition from niche product to mainstream consumer option. So no one will be forced to remove their existing boilers. Heat pumps are already a predominant technology in some other countries and have high levels of customer satisfaction. However, work needs to be done to build UK supply chains and drive down costs. Meanwhile, we will continue to invest in hydrogen heating through the neighbourhood and village trials, and this will allow us to take strategic decisions on the role of hydrogen in heating by 2026. So it looks there that hydrogen is still very much on the table. I thought it was the big push was all towards heat pumps, but no, there may yet be a use for our network of pipework that's currently supplying natural gas, and the technology is being trialled and developed as we speak, and the results of that obviously will influence to what extent we see it as a viable fuel for the future, and also what the primary energy factor will be for that fuel. So there we go. That's it. Bit of a whistle-stop tour, and as I say, it is a draft. So within a few weeks, we'll know if what I've told you is how accurate it is. But hopefully, it's pretty close. And we'll be Hertfordshire Building Control. We're constantly running CPD seminars on a monthly basis. So feel free to look at our website to see what's coming up. And also, we've got recordings of all our previous CPD webinars on subjects like this and other building regs related things. So yeah, hook in hertfordshirebc.co.uk and maybe something useful to you. Anyway, I'll stop speaking and let Peter take the chair.
Trevor, thank you so much for all that information. Some of it, if not a lot of it, went slightly over my head, I must admit, but the devil is in the detail, and the slides will be available from the BBA website. So if you go on the BBA website, click on webinars, find this one, and then the link will be to this presentation and also the slides themselves. So we're slightly over on time. So I know that we haven't got many questions from the audience. There's just two things that I wanted to pick up on. I'm just going to make sure that my screen is actually showing. Yeah, it is. Two things I just wanted to pick up on really quickly from Jonathan Ducker. And Trevor, if you've got anything to state on these, please chip in. He says the notional building is used for setting the targets TPER, TER, and TFEE. You don't have to use WWHR or PV. You can meet those targets in other ways if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, no, that's the notional building. You just have to trade off against anything you emit. So if you take out wastewater heat recovery, you've got to find that energy from something else, whether that's fabric efficiency or other technology or more efficient boilers. Yeah, it's a good point, and yeah, I probably didn't make that as clear as I could have.
Excellent. And then he just follows up with you don't have to follow the notional building recipe, which I suppose again is back to the point that you just made there.
Oh yeah, no, it's not a knitting pattern. It's just what the targets are based on. You've just got to hit the target. How you do it is entirely up to you. But you know, if you do follow the knitting pattern, you definitely will hit the target.
Sure, excellent. So that's the end of our webinar today. Thank you so much for everybody to joining us. Just to note that there's one more webinar this year, which is EN 1090, which is next Wednesday, I think. Admin Live on Air's never good. Yeah, it's Wednesday the 8th at 11 o'clock. So if you'd like to join us for that, you're more than welcome. Just to reiterate, the slide deck and the recording of this webinar will both be available on the BBA website. If you go to the website, click on webinars, scroll down to previous webinars, find this one, click that link, and it'll all be there. You should as well receive an email which might have these in, not 100% on that, so don't quote me on it, but it is available. If you can't find it, please email me, please email Trevor if you've got any further questions as well. Pretty sure he's happy to oblige as of the same as me, but I'll just pass them over to Trevor. So once again, Trevor, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, glad a lot of people join us.
Fantastic. Yeah, they have. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us, and to the BBA, thank you for allowing us to have this platform to discuss these important matters. So if you join us next week, fantastic. I will see you then. If you're not, have a good rest of your year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you in the new year with lots of different topics and webinars. So once again, thank you and goodbye.